speaker come in who is a really good friend of mine and probably one of the best coaches that I know. And one of the things that he's really incredible at is asking the kinds of questions that poke you in the chest, right? And I like it and I hate it at the same time, because he creates a space in my mindset that didn't exist before, right? He creates a gap from where I am versus who I could be by asking the right questions. And he talked about a couple different things, right? Is that the chokehold of any business is the psychology of the leader. The chokehold of any business is the psychology of the leader. And even if you're an individual agent, you're the leader of your business. And the chokehold, or the one point that's going to keep you from where you are versus where you desire to be, is your level of psychology and understanding the power of resistance. And so he talked about the fact that we have to become masters of resistance and be able to use that resistance to pull us forward, and also identify that there's going to be times where it's kind of like 99% of the time, you're going to feel resistance for doing the thing that you know you should be doing, right? And so I've got 9 pages of notes. I'm not going to share all of them with you, and yet those come to the surface for me today. And I got to ask myself, as a leader of myself, right? What am I doing daily to affect and grow the psychology of me, right? Self-mastery and self-work, right? And we've said on a couple calls and team meetings in the past, a lot of times we hide behind being busy to avoid doing the hard work. So we hide behind working hard to avoid doing the hard work. And the hard work is really the inside work. And so these calls help us with some of the external stuff, like the scripts and role plays. And yet, if we're not putting these things into action and putting them into play, and we're leaving this call as an intellectual tourist, and we're not actually putting these things in motion, that's a psychological discrepancy, right? That's a conscious decision to not step into your potential. And so we've got to master and get rid of those feelings and take action. So anyway, I wanted to share that. It was top of mind with me, and it resonated and brought value for me. And so I just wanted to give it to you as well. Any thoughts around that, hearing that? What is that? When I say those things, like, what does it mean to you, and what does it kind of bring to the surface for you?
I mean, for me yesterday, whenever he was talking, I wrote that same thing down, the chokehold about following the leader. And there's been a lot of different leaders in my life, and I still have a lot of people that I follow. But for me, I think it's interesting when I look back to go, who was I following in that business? There's a lot of businesses that are still operating, and there's a lot of businesses that have died. And it inspires me to take a look at what I'm allowing into my life and who I'm allowing into my life to make sure that that's the direction I want to go with it.
Right on. Thanks, Rebecca. Anyone else?
And I think for me, kind of what you were talking about with the hard work is looking like inward and starting there. And that was probably my biggest takeaway yesterday, was just thinking about how, am I, really, being honest with myself with what I'm doing, what I'm bringing to the table every day. And then, starting with that before I can start, doing what I really love doing, which is, helping, the others on my team, others, the other people who are around me, get the results that they want and the goals that they want. And, I always think of people are kind of put into leadership roles a lot of times, and, it's just thrust upon them kind of thing. Yesterday was the first time that I really well, not the first time, but one of the times that I really delved deep and thought about it. Really, it starts with you, how you lead yourself before you can lead anyone else. Yeah.
Going back to that triangle. Yeah. Nice takeaway. All right. So today, I believe, is session 4 of Rebecca's effortless listing presentation mastery. And so far, we've gone through the pre-listing, the listing itself, going and talking about comps. And today we're going to dive into the most common objections that you may receive at the listing appointment. And we're going to mastermind about the different ways that you handle those and how to secure the listing when you're there and not have it slip away from you by not being able to handle those objections. So, just to remember this, right? Oftentimes one of the biggest resistance or the things that can tilt us in a presentation is when we experience any kind of objection or pushback. I know for myself early on, before I really understood kind of the psychology around what objections truly are, I kind of took offense and I got defensive. Like my adrenaline would come up, like I'd start breathing heavy. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh, they want to fight me, right? Like the objection was like, you want to fight? Now we're fighting, but it's not that, right? Keep in mind, the only reason you're getting an objection is because it's a question in the mind of the seller that when you answer it, it's going to satisfy their decision to hire you, right? So an objection is just a question that once answered and handled allows you to take the listing. And whenever I looked at the objection, not as pushback because I didn't do a great job, it's really a gift that once answered, now I can move forward and take the listing. So for me, just reframing my definition of what an objection is brought a different level of energy to it. And I got excited about handling objections. So what are some of the most common objections that you've received, or what's an objection that you've received in the past that you just didn't know what to do with or couldn't overcome it, or whatever that is? I'll let you guys go. And then if we need to add anything, we will.
Well, I think the first objection that I received when the first couple of listing presentations I went on and listing things I went on was that how long have you been in the business, or how many houses have you sold? And obviously I hadn't sold any at that time, so very much relying on the team selling, and then what that brings to the table is how I got to overcome that. But that was a hard objection for me to handle at first.
Okay, so that may come up, right? So are you prepared to handle it? What are some of the ways that you can handle that objection? Anyone?
So I was really worried about that objection too, CJ. Whenever I took the position as like the listing specialist, I was kicking out a guy that had built the whole business. So it was like, you're not getting Dan Holt anymore, you're getting Rebecca Green. And I still have all of his marketing, and I had sold maybe 5 houses, maybe more than that, but it felt like very few as when compared to his 500. So I was really nervous about that. And the lady that was training me, we practiced and practiced and practiced every single day that darn listing presentation. And do you know what question I never got asked once, even though at the time that I was listing all of these houses, I was probably 22, 23. They'd ask me how old I was, but they would never ask me how long I'd been in the business. Never. Because I had all the confidence. They're like, oh my gosh, are you 12? And I'd be like, yeah, but I'm going to sell your house. So I think that's just a lack of confidence. That would be so offensive for somebody to say, how many houses have you sold? And sometimes they do. And when they do ask that, I think it's probably something you've said. You probably triggered them to allow them to ask that question. Does that make sense? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Rebecca, I would agree with that and say that that's an energy objection. They read something about your energy that caused them to wonder, right? CJ, we talked a little bit yesterday about this when I was getting started as well. I was terrified of that question. For whatever reason, I was terrified of that question. So the way that I prepared myself was like, I overstudied the market and the numbers. And so when I would step in and come in, I would just start talking about zip code, changes of interests and appreciate. Like I would just start almost like vomiting stats for them to go, oh, wow, okay, he knows, he must be doing this for a while. He knows his numbers, right? And then when it actually came up as a question, I was 3 years into the business and I'd sold a few houses. And so at that point I was like, oh, cool. And so for those that may have like on this call, if you've got like imposter syndrome, or, and what I mean by that is like, if you don't feel like a super valid realtor yet, like just know this. And this is an example a coach once shared with me. And when they shared it, I was like, oh, wow, that's actually really good. Right? Like when you walk up to the door and you've got your folder and you've set the appointment, in the mind of the seller, you're as qualified as anyone. They don't know that there's different levels to realtor, right? You don't have like your production on your name tag. You're a realtor. You come in, right? It's the same way like when you go to the doctor's office. If somebody comes in a white like jacket with like embroidery and a stethoscope, and you're in there sitting on the table and they're like, all right, I'm going to need you to go ahead and undress right now. What do? You're like, well, can I see your credentials? Are you like, is this legit? What? No, you just, for what you're like, oh, okay. And all of a sudden, so you literally meet somebody in the first minute and they could like, they just tell you what to do and you do it because there's an implied validity, right? To the thing. And so when you're coming into an appointment, your energy and how you approach it is going to be your resume. Right. So you've got to get like, we talk about this in Bold a lot, is like, you've got to set yourself up energetically for the appointment. Right. And if you're generally like a lower energy individual, that's fine. But like someone's about to hire you to make anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000 to $30,000 if you can nail these next 40 minutes. Like when you think about it, it's kind of ridiculous. And so you've got to be so on energetically, right? So whatever that is, shut your phone off. Don't look at emails. Get your hype song. You could be like Ken and do an exorcism on the way in, right? Like whatever that is, and you just do what it takes for you to get into just a like a savage boss space. And the reason why I say that is like in my mind, and I'm sharing with you kind of some behind the scenes stuff, is like in my mind. Like I'm getting out of the car and I'm like, these people don't even know they're about to listen to me right now. Like they don't even know yet. Like wait till I get in there. We're about to put a sign in the ground. Like that, like this listing is mine. This listing is mine unless they say something stupid and I don't want to work with them. Like that's the mindset that I have coming in. Right. So.
Or unless you're competing with me on a listing appointment, and then I'm probably going to go through that.
Anyway, and that's why I hired you on the team, so I don't have to compete.
CJ, but I want to go back because I didn't want to unvalidate what you said about that objection, because that's something that especially those of you that are in and working your database really heavily, your database knows that you just got started in real estate. So that may be a fear that we really need to have a conversation about. So I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. Like I said, I cheated a little bit because most of my business was all cold leads and they didn't know me from anybody else. I think being really proud of where you've come from. You all have talents and history and life lessons that you've learned up to this point. So for me, I really banked on my marketing degree. Yeah, I'm new in the business, but I had 4 years of college education and I'm passionate about real estate because blah, blah, blah. So for you, what's the value that you're bringing to it? It's not 400 sales, but what value are you bringing to them that's going to make them want to work with you? And that's how you handle that objection. My handler is going to be totally different than your handler, but just think about your value prop there.
So let's talk about a couple of handlers, right? And so if we take a look at the just kind of the breakdown of how to handle objections. Number one, we always want to validate the objection. Hey, you know what? Thank you so much for asking, right? That's a great question. And so then, but then what I do is then I gain clarity around the objection. Well, tell me what's important about the experience of an agent that you're going to choose to sell your home. Like what's important for you about that? And you're like, wow, I'm really excited why you asked. And now, do you have what you're going to say? Like, so like if you're in coaching, well, you get to lean on the experience of the coaching group. Like my coaches, the people that I'm working with that are also going to help me sell your house, sell 15 houses a month, right? And I get their experience and their eyes on this entire transaction the whole way through. Or the office that I'm in and the people that I get to work with sell over 5,000 properties out of this building every year, right? And so have that objection. And then if they say, well, so like what would be a follow-up objection to that? Do you think? What else could they say? Like, well, we were hoping for somebody that sells a lot of houses. So if you're new, so here's the thing, whether you sell a lot of houses or you don't sell a lot of houses, there's benefits and downsides to both, right? So if I'm new and I'm not selling a lot of houses, and I've had to say this before, if someone's like, well, you know, right now, if we're, you know, we're concerned we're going to be your only listing, and I'm gonna say, well, can I share with you why that's a benefit? That agent that's got 32 listings, when they go to bed, what do you think they're thinking about? 32 listings. For me, when I go to bed, all I'm thinking about is how to sell your house. You get everything I got right now and the people that I work with. So do you prefer to be one of 32 or do you prefer to be this one? That's another angle too.
And the most important part of that is just the confidence. If you're like, well, yeah, but you're going to be my only one, is very different. But like, you're going to be my only one. Let's go. I'm going to put all of my marketing efforts into this and I'm excited about it. One of those gets asked, how new are you? The other one gets a signed listing agreement.
Does anyone else have anything else that they'd like to say, if that's come up in the past or if it comes up for them now?
Well, I think CJ combining those two is kind of a good balance, letting them know that they actually get the best of both worlds, because you're on a team, CJ, aren't you? Aren't you on Ken's team? So you get
that's right.
You get all the marketing of Ken's team, and then you get you, who's hungry, who will do what it takes to get it done. So you're actually getting the best of both worlds.
So go ahead, Felicia.
I've always relied on, you know, we're the largest brokerage in the Northland and we have, you know, the best agents in the business. And I've got 400 agents behind me. If I haven't experienced something, one of them definitely has, and I can reach out and get answers.
460. That's great.
Working on 461. No.
That's really great. So again, going back through, like when you think of the objection, there's a framework, there's a game plan. Validate it, gain clarity, handle it, and then lastly, once the objection's handled, and this is what most agents don't do, and this doesn't make sense, and yet this is institutionally across the board, is once you've handled the objection, ask for the order. So do you see why working with me is really in your best benefit, Mr. and Mrs. Seller? Awesome. Are you ready to get started? I can't wait to start marketing your property. Let's go ahead and sign the agreement. Are you as excited as I am to get your house sold? Put me to work today. Let's go. Right? Don't be afraid to ask for the order. So many people are afraid to ask for the order because they're going to be like, well, I don't know. But you want to do that because you want to flesh out, are there any other objections? And in fact, you could even put that on the front end, you know, other than me being newer or on a team or having had sold a lot of other houses, is there any other reason you wouldn't list with me today? Cool. Well, let me tell you about how this is going to be awesome for you. And then go forward.
CJ, I mentioned the team meeting, and I think I have on the call as well. One of the ways to not have that question come up, if that's something, and I've heard that from people I coach too, that we're nervous that they're going to know I'm new. That resume where you present yourself as a professional and show them all the education that you've gone through even to get your license in the first place can instill a lot of confidence in the person they're about to work with. Does that make sense? Like, this is who I am. I have a full resume and I look like I've got my you know what together.
I'm going to say,
Yeah, Lisa.
okay, I was just going to say, I think Rebecca, she's just nailing it because it's all about confidence. So if you go in there and you already handle that objection, even before it comes to play, and how you would do that, because I remember when I was new, I thought the same thing and I was not on a team. So one, you could use your office, and another great way you could use your office is what I would used to do is if I was going to a community, I'd pull up the stats of what's active, what's under contract, what's been sold. And then I would use that. I'm like, oh my gosh, do you know that we have already sold this many in here? Or we've got your neighbor's house across the street, it's for sale, or 2 blocks over. I mean, so use other people's stats and just say we, and speak with confidence. And that question, I promise, is never going to come up, because why would it? So use the office, do your homework before you get there, which you should have already done anyhow, but just see, are there any Keller Williams, and then just use the office if you're a single agent and don't have a team.
Yeah, and I think that was the only way that I did overcome that was just the raise the level of preparedness. That's how you gain your confidence, and that's how you get there. And you don't have to have sold a house until to get a listing to sell a house. You get your first one when you get your first one.
Every top producing agent in the country, in the world, started with one. Every one of them. No one skipped in having sold 500. Like, you don't start at 500. Everyone starts at one, right? So just know that, right? Like, everyone that you're looking up to started with one. Now go get your one, right? And roll with it.
Another thing we learned in bold, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
If you don't have a team, I mean, like, we have title people, we have lenders, we have Matt. So you always have a team. We have a team. You have a team, whether you're on a team or not. So don't feel afraid to use that word either, because that word could mean several different things, but you do have a team of people behind you who are willing to support you. So just wanted to throw that in there as well.
Thanks, Lisa. Any other thoughts, questions around that objection? Boy, that one took some time. We might have to do more of this.
One of my favorite ways to close, and it's pretty soft, is at the very end, whenever you're asking for the order, whatever it is, you've handled the objection, you validated it, we're good to go, is just to remind them that you're there to help. And I think whenever you're new and your confidence is still being built, saying that as many times in the listing presentation as possible does two things. First of all, it helps them understand that they have something that you can help with. It sets you up as the professional. CJ, I can't wait to help you all sell the home. I can't wait to help you find a buyer. I can't wait to help you move on with the next phase of your life. It's now I'm the one helping you, and I'm coming at it. Maybe handling the objection didn't quite go the way that I wanted it to, but I'm still here to help, and I'm a genuine person. And at the end of the day, if you and I are connected and you trust that I'm here to help you, we're going to get back on the right foot. Does that make sense?
Nice. Anyone else? Anything else? So Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The office will not be staffed, but I will be on the call. I'm still planning on taking a call. I know a lot of you are still working, so there will be a call on Monday. And then we can continue to add our objection handler repertoire, so you can have all the tools out there in the field. Anyone else? We got, I know we have 3 minutes left, and yet I don't want to start another objection with 3 minutes to go, because this one took 20 minutes anyway.
Sorry,
All right,
my bad.
No, there's no apologies here. I trust everyone on this call got something from that. So appreciate you all for being here. Excited to hear more of your wins and ahas on Monday. Take care.